Hey, what's up? It's your boy Rawk. You think I have time after buying all of these? Gaming is a very time-consuming hobby. I spend so much time keeping up with gaming news, buying games, playing games, talking about games, that sometimes I forget to breathe. Granted, I'm asthmatic. God, this is really getting to me. I need to find a way to whittle down my backlog, even just a little bit, because if I don't, I won't be able to spend all of my time playing video games. I'll have to spend my time being a functioning member of society.
God, Rawk, you have so many video games. How many of them have you played?
It's a secret.
Every single video game player has a backlog. It's okay, you don't have to lie about it. You aren't in court. Hell, technically speaking, if you have one single video game you haven't played yet, you have a backlog. So when you have hundreds of games you haven't played yet, you have a reason to seek therapy. Backlogs are just something that happen. Nobody ever plans it. You buy a new game you're interested in and fully intend on playing it, but other things get in the way of that. We all have a Simpsons game in our lives, it can't be helped. And over time, you'll end up amassing a handful of games that you've just never gotten around to playing, even if you're not a collector. Hell, I know loads of people who wouldn't be caught dead collecting video games, having 1,500 Steam games that they bought in a sale and haven't even remembered the name of. Games release more frequently than people are able to play them, so unless you only buy a new game when you're done with the last one you bought, then congratulations! You've accumulated a backlog. That's a cold, hard fact.
Do I get a prize for trying this hard to justify my addiction?
For a lot of the time I've actively collected games, I've been pretty decent about knocking games off of my backlog as soon as they get there. I bought Banjo-Kazooie and Pokemon Snap and beat them within the month of doing so. Of course, some games ended up slipping through the cracks. I mean, come on, I bought Twilight Princess. I wasn't gonna play that, what am I? A corpse? But for the most part, I was pretty damn good about not leaving games to rot on my backlog for too long. Emphasis on was. Yeah, I don't really know how or even when it happened, but I got to a point where I was adding games to my backlog far more often than I was knocking them off it. And now I'm at the point where I'm overcome with guilt every time I play Splatoon 3 because there's 14 other games that I've started and haven't finished yet. Now for me personally, my backlog has multiple categories. Just because it's a miserable pile of shit, it doesn't mean I can't organize it. First up, we have the yet to plays. Games that I bought, wanna play, but just haven't gotten around to yet. This is unquestionably the biggest category in my backlog, because I can't just be content with what I have. I must buy Lego City Undercover for the Wii U.
You don't want to know what happens when I don't do that.
Naturally, I buy most first-party Switch games when they release, as well as some third-party stuff. Which means if I'm still working through another game when I buy Pac-Man World Repack, then one of two things happens. Either Pac-Man World gets added to the backlog, or I'm a bitch. So, what games have been forced to make themselves comfortable in this section of my backlog? Well, for starters, every Pokemon-related game I own. I swear, I will play through all of these games one day, even if it takes going to therapy.
Beforehand or afterwards, I'm not too picky.
I don't know why, I just can't stop buying these games, and I don't even like Pokemon. The spin-offs, on the other hand, I'm much more inclined to play, so please, God, explain to me why they aren't the ones I buy. Speaking of games I'm not gonna play, Xenoblade Chronicles. Look, man, I finally cracked. I bought all of the games, and now I'm scared to start playing any of them because I don't have 7 years to spare. Earthbound is another long-ass game in the backlog, but the difference between it and Xenomon is that I want to play this game so bad. Now, should this game actually count as an item of the backlog? Well, unlike Pokeblade, I don't own it, and Christ God, I never will. But I do pay for Nintendo Switch Online solely to have access to it. Everything else is a bonus. Who needs needs internet connectivity anyway? I didn't realize how many games in my backlog were RPGs, and that's not even the last of them because the Mario and Luigi series is in there too. Some of the games that are in my backlog just hurt me, man. Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword are all in there, which makes me miserable every time I think about it. Metroid Prime 2 and 3, Super Metroid, and Metroid Fusion. I haven't played some of Nintendo's greatest and most loved games. Donkey Kong 64! There are tons more games that I haven't started playing yet, but those are the ones that keep me up at night the most. But some games that were in that category of the backlog end up making their way to the next category, the put-me-downs. Games that I did start playing with the intention of finishing, that I ultimately ended up putting down for one reason or another, that also make me feel like I should be put down.
If I haven't beat Wario World, then what's the point in living?
This category isn't nearly as big as the first, but it hurts me twice as much. These are games that I've had a taste of. I know how much I enjoy them, and I want to keep playing them, but things just keep getting in the way. Wario World is in here, which is just pathetic. Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series, Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy, Spyro Reignited Trilogy, all cases where I made a good amount of progress into the first game, but didn't get much further than that. Metroid Samus Returns, which I very nearly beat, but then Metroid Dread released and took priority. Pokemon Legends Arceus is a game that I spent about 20 to 30 hours with and still didn't beat, my god. Chibi Robo Park Patrol is in here too. I made this damn robot travel to a different fucking continent and I still can't even spare him the decency of finishing his game. But by far the most painful game in this section of the backlog is without question The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I played through a really good amount of this game and absolutely adored it. I was so damn determined to beat this game and then Splatoon 3 released. I'm a bitch! The third and final category is definitely the lowest priority of the bunch, but still one that is more than capable of making me cry. Allow me to introduce you to the replays, the games that I've already beaten and loved and want to experience all over again. Some of the games here I try to replay every year if I can. Super Mario Odyssey, Pokepog Wii, Mario Sports Mix, Luigi's Mansion, and others are games that I have the urge to play just as often, but don't act on nearly as much. Chibi Robo is a big one, as are Pikmin 1, 2, and 3, Luigi's Mansion 2 and 3, literally all of the mainline Mario games, both 2D and 3D, but none of these compare to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I want to replay this game so badly, but I just don't have the time to commit myself to it as much as I could with my first playthrough. So I think the plan with that game is to completely block it out of my mind for a few years and replay it with a relatively fresh perspective.
I can do that, no problemo. God, I just can't resist!
Something of a subcategory here are the never-ending games. Things like multiplayer games that I'll never truly be done with. Games like Splatoon, Super Smash Bros., Mario Kart, Mario Party, Mario Strikers, the Wii series, Switch Sports. They aren't games that I'm going to be playing all of the time, but they're always going to be contenders when I'm trying to figure out what to play. And then there's Mario Tennis Aces and Mario Golf Super Rush, which I also won't be playing all of the time, because I won't be playing them at all. And that is pretty much my backlog. There are obviously some games that I haven't talked about here, both because there wasn't much to say about the rest and because I keep buying games at an alarming rate. But when there are this many games in my backlog, do you understand why I have a panic attack when someone asks me what I want to play?
I don't know, I don't know! Now surely with a backlog being such an easy thing to accumulate, there have to be some strategies to tackling it effectively. Yeah, you'd like to think so.
I have a few tricks up my sleeve to make tackling the backlog a little bit less daunting of a task, and I found that these strategies work really well for me, which makes the fact that I still haven't beaten Wario World even more pathetic. The first trick I like to use is a little website that goes by howlongtobeat.com. Your one-stop shop for figuring out how much of your life you're about to waste. I tend to write down all, or at the very least most, of the games that are occupying my backlog. And alongside that, I like to make a note of roughly how long each game's gonna take to beat according to the statistics provided by howlongtobeat.com. Now, this may not seem like it would be all that helpful, but it allows me to prioritize which games I want to tackle next as effectively as I can. If I know I'm not going to have a great deal of time to play games over the next week or so, then I'll prioritize a shorter game. If I'm going to have a lot of time to play games, then I'll either prioritize multiple shorter games or one longer game. And if I have 14 consecutive weeks to play games non-stop, then fine, I might think about giving Xenoblade a go. Now, of course, the times you find on How Long to Beat aren't going to reflect your own playtime with a game 100% accurately, but having a rough estimate of how long any given game is going to take to get through can be really helpful for tackling the backlog effectively. The other strategy I use is one that I've had varying degrees of success with, and it's literally just to make a pile of the games you want to play through next. It sounds really fucking dumb, but when you have a lot of games, it can be really difficult to remember that Mario Slam Basketball exists. So having it in a place where it wouldn't normally be makes it stand out, and makes you realize, oh god, I have responsibilities. Now obviously you can't put your entire backlog out in the open, because at that point, nothing here would change. But if you take the 5 or 10 games you want to play the most and stack them on your desk or next to your bed or something, it'll make it easier to visualize the task of getting through the backlog. Now, how effective is this strategy?
It's too messy!
It depends on who you are. I'm the type of person that falls into a coma if things aren't looking tidy and pristine. So having a big pile of yous mocking me at all times, yeah, that doesn't work for me. In theory, it should motivate me to want to get through these games so I can put them back in their place, which is exactly what makes this strategy so effective for people. But instead of doing that, it makes me fidget. So those are some strategies on how to whittle the backlog down, and make doing so a lot more manageable. There are definitely more strategies out there, and not all of them are going to be 100% effective for all people, but you'll eventually find one that works for you. But of course, we're ignoring the best strategy to eliminate the backlog. Stop buying video games!
If I buy a new game and wait to play it until I finish the game I'm currently playing through, then I feel terrible for putting this straight into the backlog. But then if I put down the game I'm currently playing through to start playing this game, then I feel awful about not finishing that game and putting it back in the backlog. There's no winning here!